Aloha mai kako. Welcome to the 12th Kale Mouse Center for Sustainable Island Food Systems Brown Bag Speaker Series event. Today's a very special event. It's marking our 1-year milestone with our Kale Mouse series here, the brown bags, and we're celebrating with a special 1.5-hour session on agricultural cooperatives in Hawaii. My name is Ioane, and on behalf of the center, mahalo to all of our guests and presenters for being here today, everybody who's supported us along the way throughout this journey. We're very much appreciative. The slide that we have posted here, if you want, you can scan the QR code in the bottom left of that slide, bottom left corner, and visit our new webpage for Kale Mouse Center. You can find past brown bag events under the speaker series tab, and then explore other initiatives that we've been working on as well. After this session, we'll process everything, and a YouTube link will be sent out to everybody who registered. And then links to the recording and the panelist resources will be shared, links to everything that the panelists are sharing will be shared throughout the Zoom chat during the presentation. So a little bit about the Kale Mouse Center. This is an initiative within the UH system. It's co-directed by both Dr. Noah Lincoln and Dr. Albie Miles. And our mission here is really to collaborate across the food systems landscape and highlight critical work that's being done in Hawaii. So we focus on food security and food justice, ecological sustainability, food systems education and policy, and really just building bridges across sectors and communities. This was created because we realize a lot of the work being done by folks is kind of being done in silos, and we don't have a lot of visibility with what one another are working on. So we wanted to find this way so we could map the landscape and build these connections. So that's our role here, making connections and sharing stories with the people and communities that it most significantly impacts. So our long-term goal is to really identify how the university can best support systemic food systems change in Hawaii. Some of our broader work here, in addition to hosting events like this, the center engages in things like research and data collection, education and community engagement, and policy analysis and monitoring. So our aim is really to help Hawaii track progress toward food sustainability goals by creating and maintaining the social, intellectual, economic, and political spaces that we feel are needed for food systems transformation. And again, visit our website for a closer look at past and current projects, and I'll be posting that again in the chat. So a little bit about today's format and topic. Our panelists will present from their organizations, their perspectives, their places, and all audience interaction today is limited to the Zoom Q&A feature. So audience members, guests, you can ask questions at any time. Just populate those, type those into the Q&A feature. And anything that we don't get time to answer during this session will be followed up with via email by our presenters or myself. Again, today's topic is agricultural cooperatives in Hawaii. And I just want to introduce today's panel. Kelly Timi is the Director of Cooperative Development and co-founder of Enliven Cooperative. We have Brandon Maka'avaava, who's the Vice President of the Nation of Hawaii. We have Rhiannon Tedeari'i Chandler Iau. She's the President of Hilo Aquaculture Cooperative. And we have Maria Haas, Professor of Aquaculture at the Pacific Aquaculture and Coastal Resources Center at UH Hilo. We have Keone DeFranco coming in all the way from Europe today. So big mahalo to him for this stretch. He's the managing director of Aina Foundry and Venture Development at the Purple Ma'i'a Foundation. And we had a last minute substitution. We had Donna Shapiro, co-founder and CEO of the Hawaii Ulu Cooperative, couldn't make it. So we have Kyle Jackson here, who's the membership lead of the Hawaii Ulu Co-op. So with that, I'd be happy to hand it over to Kelly now. Just let me stop sharing screen. And you can take it away, Kelly.
Okay, thanks so much. Just let me see if it's okay. Is my share working? Hopefully.
It looks
okay. Aloha kako. It's so nice to be here, and I'm really grateful that this has been organized. I'm going to be talking a little bit about the cooperative ecosystem, both from a global perspective, but and then kind of narrow down to our local perspective. That's actually the area. I'm not just passionate about co-ops in general. It's actually the ecosystem that I'm more concerned with. I've been putting my energy towards because not just from my perspective, but from anyone who works with within co-ops, the most important aspect is that we have a strong ecosystem. Um, the the various things I put on this first slide are the different ways I'm involved right now in collective organizations, cooperatives. I just wanted to name those to also give a bigger perspective of how when we identify cooperatives, it isn't necessarily only businesses that are formally incorporated as cooperatives, and that's a really important part of all of this as well. I'm a co-founder of an organization, actually not a formal cooperative, it's a worker directed nonprofit, and that's an important distinction. We decided to incorporate as a nonprofit rather than a cooperative because we felt that that aligned more with what we're trying to do. And that's called the Enliven Cooperative. It's a kind of a slow moving organization. We've been increasingly involved in different educational work. I'm also a co-founder of something called the Ecoversities Alliance. It's not an incorporated anything. It's a loose alliance of folks globally who are engaged with alternative higher education initiatives. And that's actually one of the reasons I'm in Hawaii. I've been working closely with Kuka Hakalau for more than a decade, and she's been very involved in the Ecoversities Alliance and started AI Ecoversity as a result of her work within that alliance. I'm a board member of a more recent incorporated cooperative, the Hawaiʻi Mamaki Cooperative. Really excited about this particular cooperative. They're also just getting started. And the way they've organized themselves is one of their key values is what not only do we as producers of mamaki want and need, what does mamaki itself want? And so the plant has a particular value and role within the membership of the entire cooperative in terms of its design. When this cooperative was started about a year and a half ago, I was working at the Kohala Center as their cooperative development specialist. They've been the only organization offering cooperative development support work for the last 15 years, and that has been slowly transitioning out. But while I helped to incorporate the Mamaki Cooperative, I also helped to write their bylaws, help them just to figure out how to form. And then my other kind of role, while I was working at the College Center, I was really involved in, and I still am, within Cooperation Works, which is an important organization for anyone interested in cooperatives. They have an amazing amount of resources. They're a nationwide, in the US, cooperative development support network, and have a wonderful amount of resources. And I was elected onto their board in January. So I'm really involved in that and trying to bring in Hawaii a little bit more into the conversation. So I mention all of these because this ecosystem of cooperatives is huge. And it's not just here, it's nationwide, it's all over the world. I'm going to talk a little bit during my time about where cooperatives are and their impact globally. But first, very quickly, for those of you who don't know what a cooperative is, the kind of well understood, agreed upon definition coming from the International Cooperative Alliance is that cooperatives are autonomous associations of persons united voluntarily to meet their common economic, social, and cultural needs and aspirations through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. The most important thing to know is that cooperatives are businesses that are member-owned, member-benefited, and member-controlled, which is a big leap from where businesses and how they tend to operate. Cooperatives prioritize values of democracy, autonomy, sovereignty, self-help, self-responsibility, equity, equality, and solidarity. And they're really fundamentally concerned with economic democracy. So, I mean, that's more up here, kind of values and priorities, but it's really important to know what kind of, what's the value commonality between these types of businesses and organizations. Another aspect, so these are the 7 cooperative principles, again, an internationally recognized list. There are 7. These and I think the other important part to mention about these principles is that these have been expanded. So, for example, Cooperation Works looked at these principles about a year ago, and they said, actually, this isn't enough. We want to change these. We want to edit these a little bit. And so they did that, and they made them a bit more telling to our current times, our current needs. There are indigenous cooperatives, many of them across the Americas, who have also taken this list and created a more and indigenous values lens on the values that are upholding their own cooperative. And I think that's really important, especially here in Hawaii, to be aware of as a point of inspiration and solidarity. Why cooperatives form? Variety of reasons. Trying to fill a market niche, trying to resist monopoly, corruption, exploitation, marginalization, all those types of things, and really to stand up in solidarity and to localize. And I know folks who are talking after me will definitely mention a lot more about that. But the biggest reason overall is to fill a market is to fill a market niche typically, and in response to either a need or something that isn't feeling or doing right within a particular area. And I've encountered a lot of that here. Folks wanting to start, macadamia cooperatives, ava cooperatives, kalo cooperative, just trying to formally create a stronger solidarity around whatever plant, business, point on the food chain, energy, and beyond. And I'll talk a little bit too about what different types of cooperatives that we have in Hawaii. Before I go there, I wanted to say something briefly about kind of what the reason I think cooperatives are so important right now in our current economic system, because they're kind of a step out, but they're not completely a step out. They're kind of connected with our current system, but really trying to reimagine our current system at the same time. And for me, it's all about power and the redistribution of power. I really like this quote, this academic called Marjorie Kelly. She did a long piece of research, visiting, documenting different types, not just of cooperatives, but solidarity economy type initiatives globally, wrote about it. And her big statement is that it's all about ownership. It's all about the design of ownership, going from a top-down kind of a structure into a more bottom-up, messy, shared kind of a structure. And so to really change things that we need, it's not just about tinkering on programs or, here and there. It's actually reimagining ownership and leadership models and doing that in a shared kind of way. Again, whether it's an incorporated formal cooperative or some other kind of entity. I also really like this quote. This encourages me a lot, that we cannot solve our own, that we cannot solve the problems that we're in right now using the same thinking that we used, that was used to actually to create them in the first place. It's all about a redesign. And here in Hawaii, we have those designs from before that worked for a really long time. They still work. And so how do we continue some of those more ancient collective designs and bring in some of the more modern at the same time? Sorry if I'm speaking fast, just still trying to set it up. I think, again, when I said it at the beginning, the importance of ecosystem, that cooperatives are part of a much bigger global ecosystem of now what's called the solidarity economy. And it really is any type of engaged collective form of exchange, not just of money, that promotes well-being and access. I mean, the word economy, the root of the word economy literally means management of the household. It has nothing to do with money. We've made it all about money, but that's not fundamentally what it's about. This little flag at the bottom that says World Social Forum, maybe some of you have heard about that movement. It started in the year 2000 as a direct response to what's wrong with the World Economic Forum, what voices are not present in that process. And so it's been a mishmash collective of social activists, indigenous activists, nonprofits, more conventional nonprofits, but any place along that spectrum of trying to get in other voices of other types of economics, of other types of cultures, practices, education approaches that are not represented there. And all of that is within this kind of wheel of economic, of of the solidarity economy. Other movements like Occupy Wall Street, I don't know if any of you have heard of that, the Zapatista movement, all of that is kind of behind the scenes and supporting this movement. And I think it's really important to know that this is all a movement. It's not like a defined thing. It's continually changing. There's innovations happening all over the place to try and see about how can we make our economic system fair, just, more ecologically responsible, culturally responsible. And so that's really the aim there. In 2019, the UN informally recognized the solidarity economy as important within the whole economic sphere and system. And finally, in 2023, it was formally recognized within a resolution. Because everybody knows that this kind of, all of these practices are ongoing and they're important, especially locally. Quickly, some of the actual impacts of co-ops. About 10% of the world globally are employed within a cooperative. It's a huge part globally of the global economic system. In the US, 1 in 3 Americans are members of cooperatives. The annual revenue, this was from 2023, I think, was 324 billion. So it's not a small thing. It's actually huge. Most people don't even know about them because they aren't taught about. And so it's, I mean, for me, it was also an accidental kind of learning about what co-ops even are. And since then, I've been, as you can probably tell, pretty passionate about all of this. I'm going to skip forward just because of time, and I want to focus a little bit on Hawaii before we move forward. This is a map from 2022 of co-ops active across our islands. I had a look again a couple of days ago at the DCCA registration list of cooperatives active or not within the state of Hawaii, and the vast majority are not active. They've expired, they've dissolved. There's about 300 that are on that list. And I say that because for me, one of the biggest reasons is that we need more ecosystem support. And a backstory here, a couple of years ago when I was working with the Kahala Center with a colleague, we did a needs assessment, spoke to 15 co-ops across the state. There are amazing active cooperatives in agriculture, food systems, Ulu Cooperative being one of those that most folks know about, marketing, land access, equipment access, renewable energy, and so it's still across the board. One important initiative to also mention, this is happening at the end of May. It's an invite only. A couple folks in this group, well, actually, I think everyone's coming, but there's folks who've been helping me organize, Keone and Donna Shapiro. We are organizing the first Hawaii cooperative gathering. We've had a really positive, enthusiastic, excited response because people know that this is important. We started this several months ago, but really the idea came for me from what everybody during the needs assessment said. We need to meet, we need to build relationships, we need to share our cooperative successes and traumas and learn and share. And so that was one of the points of inspiration to beginning to design this first gathering. We hope it's the first of many. It's in response to a rather weak co-op ecosystem within our state. And as I mentioned, few active remain. But those that are registered, there's more than 40, and I mean we see this as a way to really begin to ground and figure out how not only to strengthen our ecosystem within the state, how to strengthen an ecosystem of better support, and also what does that mean in Hawaii? Can there be more legislation? Because right now we can only be agricultural cooperatives, consumer cooperatives, and kind of housing. And I say kind of because it's not very straightforward. But we need worker owned, we need multi-stakeholder, we need other options. And there is that interest. And so, where can we go from here? And I'll stop. I know I'm kind of at the end of my time, but I don't know if there are questions. Ioane, maybe you can help me a little bit with that.
Yeah.
But
Mahalo, Kelly. I think that's a great intro, a great overview for co-ops here. The Q&A feature is active, so if folks want to start putting questions in there, and then presenters can take a look and see if they want to jump on those questions. And Maria, if you want to set up and start your presentation now, we have Maria Haas from UH Hilo.
Oh, aloha kako. Just give me a second here. I'm trying to call up my presentation. Um, I just wanted to mention that Rhiannon Chandler, yeah, who's the president of the Hilo Aquaculture Cooperative, we're going to kind of tag team each other. So I'm going to set the stage, and then she's going to follow on with, I think, a little bit more specific co-op stuff. But since aquaculture co-ops are pretty new in the United States, and they're definitely very new in Hawaii, I wanted to talk about some of the distinguishing features of aquaculture that makes it, I think, a little bit different than setting up an ag co-op. Maybe I'm wrong. I also want to mention that we're still very new to the whole co-op world. Okay, so we're here to learn from you folks as well. And I'm sorry, I'm having trouble sharing. Let me try this again. Okay, can you guys see that?
It's there now, Maria. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to talk about why I believe, and I think many of us believe, there's potential for cooperatives to help with aquaculture development in Hawaii, and specifically what we've been trying to do with forming and operating the Hilo Aquaculture Cooperative. And so I'm going to talk about why aquaculture is particularly important to food production in Hawaii, talk about Hilo Bay because our co-op is focused on what we're going to be trying to do in Hilo Bay. And I also want to just kind of I can't get too much in depth on this, but there are commercial restorative and subsistence opportunities that are very much interlinked with aquaculture in Hawaii, but it's all grist for the cooperative formation mill, I think. Now, of course, we have lots of challenges, and in fact, some of the challenges to aquaculture development that we experience here in Hawaii, although a lot of these are global as well, are, I think, good reasons to look at the co-op model as a good alternative that can help us actually develop more aquaculture in Hawaii and contribute more to our food production. So I always like to show this slide. This is from the FAO. You know, the intent of this is really to show that wild fisheries have pretty much leveled off in terms of sustainable catch, whereas I think we all know seafood consumption is rapidly growing on a global basis, but even here in the United States and Hawaii. However, if we're going to meet the gap for the demand for seafood versus the supply of seafood from wild fisheries, aquaculture is obviously where we're going to get our seafood from. Okay. And it's a really important thing for the U.S. The U.S. actually imports about 80% of its seafood. Hawaii we're kind of lucky. We're actually below that. We think that about 51% of our seafood is sourced locally. And a lot of that comes from what would kind of fall into what we would consider subsistence or recreational fishing versus commercial catch. But on the other hand, residents of Hawaii, we consume about twice the national average of seafood. Okay, so that means we're going to actually have to produce a lot more. We're very lucky, though, as we have a lot of natural resources and species. So I just want to cover the species a little bit first because I'm going to refer to them later in my presentation. So we have both introduced and we have native fish species. Right now, our cooperative is not planning to do anything with fish, just partly because it's more costly and it's more technically difficult to do. But obviously, this is something that's really of interest, particularly from the stance of the local IA here in Hawaii. For anybody who's not from Hawaii, local IA means fish pond. We're talking about traditional Hawaiian fish ponds that have been built, centuries ago and have been functioning ever since. They were a very important contributor to seafood production in Hawaii throughout the years. What we really are focused on with our co-op, and actually here at the Pacific Aquaculture Center, is the invertebrates and seaweed. So in Hawaii, we call seaweed limu. So I'm going to be using the word limu more than anything else in terms of seaweed. But we have a huge amount of biodiversity that we could actually be growing, including my favorite pearls. Okay, so just to give you an idea, this is just a very small snapshot of some of our native shellfish species. We actually have over 200 species known in Hawaii, and we've recently discovered we have at least 3 more that we didn't know about. We also have some introduced species, like here on the upper left-hand side, that's the Pacific oyster. That's actually the main oyster that our oyster farms culture right now. We have a variety of other species, and on the lower right-hand side, we have our native oyster, Dendosteros sandwichensis, which is another one of the species we're doing a lot of active research and development on for use here in Hawaii. And macroalgae, again, limu. We're very blessed that we have Dr. Carla McDermott here at UH Hilo. She is a marine phycologist, meaning she specializes in marine plants, and she has recently developed culture methods for at least half a dozen of our native seaweed species. She actually also pioneered what we're calling the Limu Ark. She has over, I think, 70 different types of seaweed being grown right now in that ark. part of that is just to act as a sort of a repository. So if people need particular types of seaweeds, they can access it through the ARC. Because one of the unfortunate things that's happening throughout our islands is that a lot of the local populations of seaweed are disappearing or have disappeared. It's not really clear what the reason it is, but we think it's related to environmental degradation and perhaps reduction of freshwater flows. And also just to be able to kind of systematically go species by species and figure out ways that we could be growing these in aquaculture. And not to leave out the other species, one of our big focus areas here at PACRAC is restorative aquaculture, meaning looking at how to use aquaculture for environmental benefits. And so there's a wide range of organisms that can provide different functions in our ecosystems, including things like sea urchins. We have one of the few sea urchin hatcheries in the world over at Anui Nui on Sand Island. And also we're working on sea cucumbers, which can help us clean up the bottom of the ocean floor. But again, a lot of this is still very early days in terms of R&D. We have a long way to go in terms of really being able to grow a lot of our native species here in Hawaii. Okay, so why did we start thinking about co-ops? Okay, so just as a general statement, permitting obstacles are one of the primary reasons we cannot do very much with aquaculture right now. Even the local IA, which have a streamlined pathway, permitting pathway as of around 2012, still struggle with getting permits, which is obviously not a desirable situation. There's things like other and clear pathways. So if you want to do anything that's not in a Hawaiian fish pond, you're in a whole different territory permitting and policy-wise. There's agency discretion. There's things like new activities. Like if I want to grow a certain type of native seaweed that's never been done before, sometimes the permitting agencies are going to struggle with this. There's also the issue of social license, which is a huge issue. You know, there's a lot of perception among certain parts of the population that aquaculture is environmentally damaging or it presents threats of various types. And there has been a kind of a tainted track record with certain forms of aquaculture around the world that we are still trying to deal with. There's things like cost and time to get those permits. And Rhiannon will talk a little bit more about this. But we're also talking about access to water and land, which are public resources. Okay, there's very few instances. For example, in Hawaii, we don't have privatized intertidal lands like they do in Washington. In Washington State, you can actually own intertidal areas, and that actually clears the way to do a lot of oyster aquaculture. That's why Washington is a powerhouse in oyster aquaculture. We have things like discharge. Okay, so again, all these things that could potentially be environmental impacts or issues, you have to get permits for that. We have to deal with that. And then there's cost. It takes equipment. If you're going to work in the water, you're going to have boats. There's specialized technical knowledge. And one of the things that we're particularly interested in is trying to just use any collaborative means to bring together sort of traditional and more recent experiences in aquaculture so we can have a more synergistic blend of how we conduct aquaculture here in Hawaii. And then markets, you know, what is our market for these newish products? So limu is a really good example of that. A lot of people are very familiar with the different species of limu, although we found that a lot of people in the younger generation might only know one or two types. So the ogo that you get in your poke, that's not even a native species. Yet when we talk about limu, everybody goes, oh yeah, ogo, right? But that's not what we're aiming at. We're aiming at using our native species. But what's the market price if we were to grow these native limu species? So there's just a lot of unknowns, but I always put permitting in some kind of bright color because this is what's really stymied almost all forms of aquaculture in Hawaii, even the most simple basic forms that would be quite common in other areas of the world. So if you want to do aquaculture here in Hawaii, you're really limited to where you could establish your project or your business. The first choice would obviously be the Hawaiian fish ponds, but not everybody has access to the fish ponds. For example, about 50% of the fish ponds are actually controlled by the state. They're not privately owned. So even if you're a local family and you had a fish pond right next door to you, you might not be able to get permits to function there, even if you believed you had kuleana rights to that. Now you can do things on land. So we have numerous examples in Hawaii of things like the Anui Nui Fisheries Research Center, the Nelha Aquaculture Park in Kona, even PACRAC. I'll show you a slide of that in a second. So land-based is possible, but most land-based facilities use a lot of electrical power. And then you also have these discharge issues. So it's not a bad thing. It's actually a lot of global aquaculture is moving to sort of enclosed land-based systems because they're more biosecure, but there's cost. You could do aquaculture in the federal waters. Right now, we don't have any examples of that in the Pacific region that I know of. We only have one nearshore aquaculture project, which is the Blue Ocean Mariculture Farm in Kailua Kona, which produces kampachi. So there, and if you wanted to be a mom and pop business, the second you step outside that fish pond wall, and you know, again, you could go around the world, and if you're a mom and pop kind of family, or maybe you're a small business, it would be a natural site in these intertidal areas to grow your seaweed, grow your shellfish. Almost impossible to do here. Again, primarily due to permitting difficulties. Okay, so this is an aerial view of Pack Rack. We're mostly a bunch of hatcheries, but you can see that we're actually based at the former wastewater treatment plant of Hilo, which was unfortunately based in Keaukaha. Keaukaha is a Department of Hawaiian Homeland's neighborhood area. And so we're right on the water. We're actually outside of the breakwater area, so we're not protected from tsunamis. But if you look at Hilo Bay in general, you know, what do you see here? So we have a pretty heavily urbanized area. We've got 2 rivers running in there. And again, one of the big problems is, what are those rivers carrying into Hilo Bay? You can also just see that we're distinguished by a very long breakwater. That breakwater was started, I think original construction started in 1908, but that breakwater captures, for at least a temporary period, almost everything that comes off the land, okay? And this was taken on a clear day. You can actually see the depth of Hilo Bay. But a lot of times when it rains, what happens is we get a lot of terrestrial runoff, mostly nutrients. We're lucky it's not really industrial waste of most kinds. It's nutrients. It's things like nitrogen, phosphorus, essentially fertilizers of various sort, human waste from cesspools. And what that does is it creates a microalgae bloom in Hilo Bay, and it builds and builds until you get a big rain event, and then it flushes out through the opening of the breakwater, and that big plume of microalgae goes up the Hamakua coast. Now, that's not considered natural in Hawaii. It's considered an impact. But if you're an oyster or if you're limu, those are food sources. So this is really, if you want to do limu in shellfish, limu can actually uptake these nutrients almost instantaneously. And they uptake a lot. It's fertilizer for the plants. Bivalves don't uptake that instantaneously, but they will feed on the microalgae that's created by these nutrient runoff sources. Okay, so let's say I came in, let's say I'm an entrepreneur and I happen to fly over Hilo Bay and I see this, I'm like, why the heck are people not doing aquaculture in there? And I might say, oh, well, maybe I should move in there and do aquaculture. From a certain type of entrepreneurial perspective, this is a ripe plum that's waiting to be plucked. So our question was, who's going to pluck this ripe plum first? And our thought was, well, why not local people? And specifically, why not Keaukaha residents? Since actually most of the direct urbanization on the coast is in Keaukaha, although I don't have a picture of that. Okay, so we started really thinking about how could we get Keaukaha people more involved in potential, sustainable uses of Hilo Bay. It's already pretty heavily used. It's used for fishing, recreation. There's cultural things, shipping. Our cruise ships and our cargo ships come into Hilo Bay. Why not aquaculture? But again, part of the reason that we think that people really haven't looked at this seriously for aquaculture up to now is just because of this idea that it's polluted, even though these pollutants are really nutrients that we can hopefully recapture and use. I think all of you guys, most of you guys are kind of from the ag world, you know that fertilizer is getting a lot more expensive, but we're basically throwing it away. And not only that, all that food we import, we eat it, digest it, excrete it, we also throw it away. So nutrient recapturing, I think, is going to be a big thing for Hawaii in the future in various forms. So this just kind of gives you the perspective of us. We're right next to Puhi Bay. Our site-specific name is Milo. And again, on this further side, you can see this is part of the Keaukaha neighborhood and then the port of Hilo. So we decided to do some trials back in 2013. We started out planting Pacific oysters. We later tested native oysters. We documented the highest growth rate for Pacific oysters in the entire world in Hilo Bay. So there's a lot of nutrients, a lot of food, and nice temperatures. Okay, so again, just going back, we have all these limu and shellfish species that are essentially ideal little machines, if you want to call them that, or ideal little entities to help us recapture these nutrients and improve the water quality of Hilo Bay. So this is what got us thinking about the idea of being a co-op. And back, I think it was in 2017, early 2018, we started working with Teresa Young, who was with the Kohala Center. She was the co-op development specialist. And she helped us kind of go through the consultative process with a bunch of people, mainly from Keaukaha or employees of PACRAC, to formally incorporate the Hilo Aquaculture Co-op in 2018. So I kind of listed some of the things that we were aiming at doing, but really the primary reason was, aside from trying to make productive use of Hilo Bay and clean it up, is we wanted just to make sure that if there was going to be benefits from aquaculture, that they would go more directly to local participants. And so the idea was, as we formed the co-op, that we would actually then be co-managing this little aquaculture site that we had there with the co-op. And I just wanted to mention this bottom photograph here. This is actually Keahi Warfield, who runs a STEM paddling organization, which is based right next to us. And one of the things we really wanted to do was incorporate children, but also non-motorized vehicles, to tend this little aquaculture site, as an idea of kind of reducing the carbon footprint by utilizing non-motorized vehicles. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Rhiannon here soon, but we are still trying to figure out what the vision is for aquaculture in Hawaii, but also what is the vision for this particular form and site of aquaculture here in Hilo Bay, and how it would be run and operated by the co-op. But you can see there's many systems and there's many ways to do this kind of low input aquaculture in Hawaii, including in the fish ponds. So whatever we learn in Hilo Bay, hopefully can get transferred to the fish ponds. A lot of what we're doing in Hilo Bay, actually, we learned at the fish ponds originally. So again, I think this is where the synergy of traditional and then, again, I don't like to use the word modern necessarily, but more recent experiences, maybe we can call them that, it really lend themselves to having a more productive aquaculture environment. And again, pearls, there's a lot of cultural things that can result from, for example, cultivating pearls, shells of various types. So we don't want to forget the cultural elements. And I just wanted to kind of acknowledge all the people who've contributed to this stream of work as we've moved along towards getting aquaculture into Hilo Bay, but also doing it hand in hand with the Hilo Aquaculture Co-op. So thank you. And I did want to give a shout out to the organizers for having invited us today. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Maria.
Mahalo, Maria.
Yeah.
Would you mind leaving your last slide up with all the different opportunities for sustainable development?
Sorry, you said the very last slide?
Yeah, just the one with Jackie and the cages. Yeah. Mahalo, everyone. I'm so grateful to be here. I apologize. While plugged in, my laptop died. So I do not have a PowerPoint, but unfortunately, I am going to have to fly completely blind because I don't even have my notes, which are inside my PowerPoint. Luckily, I've been the president of the Aquaculture Co-op in Hilo Bay for a few years now, and am very grateful to be with all of you today. I want to echo everything that Dr. Maria has said, and also make a really big note that none of this is possible without the university. The technical expertise, the training, all of the research and development that's been done, really 20 years worth of research and development in Hilo Bay and across the state have led to even the opportunity to have an aquaculture cooperative. Hilo has the only 4-year aquaculture program in the state system, and we're very, very grateful to be housed there. I think that there's no way that we could do this without the program being in Hilo, and of course that's why we want to be in Hilo to serve the people of Hilo first with this opportunity, as well as to share our kuleana. As Maria mentioned, the Pacific Aquaculture and Coastal Resources Center is located in Keaukaha. And so we have a kuleana to the area that we help to take care. It's located right on Puhi Bay, which is a very important marine resource area for the people of Keaukaha. And so the vision and really the hope of this aquaculture cooperative is that the people get to share in things like the decision making, in the managing of the abundance of the resources, and really are co-piloting this project. This is not a UH project. This is a community project. It's community driven and composed of folks from this region. And I think that that's what oftentimes, as Kelly was sharing, cooperatives strive to do, is to share that responsibility and have the decision making and the leadership come from the place And I think that oftentimes things are happening in areas, but the local people are not always aware or participating in it. And we wanted to be sure that this opportunity, which is such a rare opportunity, the first aquaculture cooperative in the state of Hawaii, be given first to the people of Keaukaha. And so I want to say mahalo to Maria also for all of her work to lead us to this place. I think that co-piloting is really a little bit synonymous with co-powering in this aspect, that the community really needs to be lifted up for their skills. This is their place. They understand the tides and the currents. They understand the access. And these are the things that we need to be mindful of when taking on a project like this. As Maria mentioned, Hilo Bay is an amazing resource. It is actually the largest watershed in the state of Hawaii. And it is over 1,500 acres in size, just the flat surface of the water. And so it's an incredible space that we're really lucky it hasn't been utilized by someone else. I mean, I think we've all heard about people coming from wherever they come from and seeing Hawaii as a resource and wanting to utilize it. And I think that this aquaculture cooperative allows an element of self-determination in the use of the bay and empowering the people to be able to make the decisions about what will be grown among the different options. As Maria said, we're focusing more on shellfish and limu because we know that those things grow well in the bay. And there are consumptive and non-consumptive uses for those, which are really important. The people, of course, are interested in eating anything that can be grown from the bay. And we're very mindful about the historical uses of our bay and the quality of what we're going to grow in there. But we already have plans for other aspects of non-consumptive uses, such as fertilizers from seaweed and soil enhancers from shells of oysters and jewelry. As Maria mentioned, pearls are also my favorite thing, but shells, from the pearl oyster are used in many aspects of jewelry and also cultural practices related to hula. And there's a lot of halau that dance Tahitian in Hilo area, and they really actually need the oyster shell, and we don't have it at this moment, but we're hopeful that we will be able to present that as one of the products that come from this. And so, as Maria mentioned, the goal is to share the benefits, but in another, I think, view of cooperatives, we share the burdens as well. And one of the burdens is really policy and permitting. I mean, as Maria said, really the thing that's single-handedly handicapped our food security, I would say, in the aquaculture space is permits and regulations around the use of particularly open ocean areas. Things have been a little bit more streamlined for fish ponds, which has enabled some of the research that Maria has done up to this point. But open ocean aquaculture is a whole different space, and there is hesitation, of course, among our regulators to not want to, I guess, permit the wrong project and all of these things. And so we have spent years really trying to understand the landscape and bring people together to understand what something like this would look like. This is ambitious from a permitting perspective when permitting is already difficult. And so I think that the cooperative really benefits from the years of effort and time that's been put into understanding the permitting landscape, but also that they don't have to physically do that as individual members because they would be set back years as individuals. And so instead, the cooperative allows us to permit one space and allow, the individual use of these plots, much like a community garden, but in this case, a community garden in the ocean. And so we are bearing really that burden on our shoulders through the university and through all of the research and development that has gone into getting us to this point. And so I think that's one of the aspects that lends power to the model of the cooperative, is sharing the benefits and also sharing the burden. Some of the burdens are so high, people wouldn't probably be able to get started. They would never be shellfish farmers if they had to endure all of the years that it takes to get off the ground. And so, we're very fortunate that this opportunity is coming on the years of investment that has, but it can't even think right now and talk about non-productive use. We're actually seeing some of the highest prices we've ever had for fertilizers, and soil amendments. And so we desperately need a local source of these things. Same thing with food. We all know our food security situation, and Hawaii is the fourth longest coastline in the United States. You would think that we would have much more aquaculture going on here, but as Maria said, that's actually, I believe, what's on the horizon. And so cooperative efforts like this, I think, are the beginning of taking steps towards finding solutions to the challenges that we're facing right now, both economic, food security, importation, everything that we aspired to maybe 7 years ago to create this cooperative is now coming to like an absolute need at this moment. And so I'm grateful for the timing and the effort. I want to thank Kelly for her leadership in developing cooperative education, and to everyone on this panel for what you are bringing to this space that we can all learn together. It's amazing how powerful and important cooperatives are and how few we have at this moment. But I believe this is really kind of like a watershed moment in time where years from now we'll look back and be really the beneficiaries of so much work that's gone into this. So thank you, everyone. I apologize again for my technical difficulties, but I'm going to pass it back to the moderator, and I am here for questions. Mahalo.
Thank you so much, Rhiannon, and awesome job winging it. I would have never guessed. Sorry you had those technical difficulties. Yeah, so up next, we're going to have Keone DeFranco and Brandon Maka'aba presenting. Take it away, guys.
Right on. Aloha. Can you guys see my screen here? Awesome. Aloha mai o Keone Ko'inoa. No Wilikini Maiao, Aka Nohauma Waima Nalo. Aloha, I'm Keone DeFranco here with Purple Mai'a Foundation and Nation of Hawaii. I am a diaspora Hawaiian, originally from the Virginia region, and I now call Waimanalo home. And I do have a background in technology, living in New York City for about a decade, doing work in the healthcare IT space before moving back home to begin working with Purple Mai'a and helping Uncle Bumpy and Brandon with our activist work at Nation of Hawaii. And I do view my work as a kalo farmer up at the Pu'uonua as my most cherished work. And we have been, very cooperative curious between both organizations. We've been really excited to partner with Kelly with this upcoming cooperative gathering and partnering in various ways with each of the panelists in this hui here. And really do believe as an organization that's working in the economic development space that cooperatives are really core to a future Hawaii in which we actually have a real redistribution of wealth and vai in a way that makes sense and is really culturally grounded and really in line with our traditional values as Kanaka Oiwi. But Purple Mai'a Foundation is in its 11th year. We are a Native Hawaiian-led nonprofit, and we sit at the intersection of technology, economic development, aloha aina, and education. And we've been really blessed to be able to partner with world-class builders and keiki and organizations across Pai'aina, Hawaii. And our work does span across all these different sectors here. And as we've built more, connections within our entrepreneurship and building arenas, we hear more and more regionally interest in exploring cooperative development and how groups can begin to share resources, potentially explore worker ownership one day, and be able to share, physical infrastructure, which has led us down this path here. But as an organization and personally, when we think about the challenges that the economy of Hawaii faces, it's important that we, always acknowledge what has happened here within Hawaii, the illegal overthrow and annexation of a sovereign Hawaiian government. and that in itself leading to severe, underdevelopment of Hawaii's economy, built by those whose main motivation has been to extract resources. And so what we believe is by, really cultivating a strong community of creatives, of builders, and as cooperatives driven by Lohaʻaina and Ea, this provides the rich opportunity required, innovation, and opportunities for collaboration to build power as community, in all our different ways. And so for us at Purple Mai'a, we described, this future-looking vision as Ea Ho. For us, Ea, sovereignty and Ho, new and fresh. As our organization reflects, it's about, how do we reimagine what a future Hawaii can look like, really rooted in a circular regenerative economy, based on these principles of Lohaʻaina, self-determination and sovereignty. How can we redefine, what we look at as wealth, and bring it back into, our cultural values, or mo'okua how, and always reminding ourselves that our kupuna really did perfect this. They had perfected through the ahupua'a a self-sustaining and regenerative circular economy that did work, was in place up until, the overthrow of our government. And so how do we continue as an organization, that works in technology, continue to remind ourselves that, these perfect technologies did exist within our culture traditionally, local ia being one of these, a way, to work with pohaku, and create, systems of abundance, food security, and allow us to really provide, a better society for everyone. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing with Nation of Hawaii, and that Brandon will expand upon, especially with our history up at Nation of Hawaii, from occupation to the vaiwai that we have today, is about physically restoring this ecosystem in this ahupua'a. How do we, work together as community to put these pohaku back, to grow kalo, to be able to distribute it into our local schools, into our communities as well. How do we build community power? Once a month, we're now hosting Aloha Aina Days, gathering community together to restore these ancient walls, build community there to plant food, and just really think about what does this, future look like. And so we've been hard at work at this since, I guess it was September of 2023, and we walked into a space that's on the property up at the Pu'uhonua, that had been, severely overgrown, but Uncle Bumpy and folks up there like Brandon knew that this infrastructure was in place, and we just needed to be tackled by many together. And so you can see a bit of the work that occurred in September 2023. That was after the first work day. But you can start to see sort of where the pohaku are within the ecosystem and where we are today now, and be able to really provide, great space for a community to come together and grow food and think about this future. And the different terrace systems and our water is restored, and flowing from Makua to Makai. We're seeing our native O'opu fish coming back together. And as this project has scaled, and as I've, been able to reflect more, we really do view Pu'uhonua as one of these models of sustainability that can really work across our Pai'aina. Pu'uhonua, traditionally known as a place of refuge, really now transforming into this thriving village, from occupation on the beach in 1993 that Uncle Bumpy led, to Ea that we have today. And so how can we, view the model led by Uncle Bumpy at the Pu'uhonua as one that can be replicated across our Pai'aina? How can communities be intentionally designed with housing paired with agriculture? How can, community, communal land tenure come back into play, and community stewardship to achieve regional food security? The majority of the kalo being, grown and harvested right now at the Pu'uhonua is going to our local charter schools, donated for free. So how can we continue to build this abundance within our communities? Can we begin to propose these economic zones where the state's able to partner with lineal descendants and foundations that are created? We're seeing a lot of this work in places like Haena right now, and really begin to reduce the barriers of our food system, whether that is permits, which Maria speaks a lot about, or access to land, 99-year, $1 leases, just to make sure that we achieve, our sustainability and food system goals. Doing things like removing different taxes, if agriculture is able to be sold within these zones, to one day potentially, build these networks of autonomous self-governing pu'uhonuas that are able to connect and provide, the social services to community that are required today. And what we like to reflect a lot about is the concept of a malaplex, and the malaplex as a methodology. For us, a malaplex is an active space where technology, culture, and Aina can come together in the same space to generate and build these new futures. How can we physically transform land back, one, through occupation, into abundance for everyone? And then from there, once we actually have the foundation set, really think about what a better regenerative economic system can look like. And to me, that always comes back to cooperatives. If we're getting to a stage of potential commercial agriculture in spaces like this, how can we ensure that workers have ownership and equity as we take these next steps? And always planting these seeds for our next generation. We do a lot of internships, bringing middle schools, high schoolers into the space initially for Huaka'i, but starting in the fall, we'll be partnering between Nation of Hawaii and the Pu'uhonua to actually start what could turn into a weekly internship up there to really dive into both the technology and the agriculture itself. And so we've taken these concepts of a malaplex as a methodology and built at Purple Maya what we're calling our Aina Foundry. And so this is a shift in our organization from what's traditionally been incubators and accelerators to beginning to build and design and launch our own businesses. And how do we partner with community in an equitable way to do so? And so I can hop over to our Build for Aina event, which was hosted in partnership with Nation of Hawaii at the end of April. And this is really an experiment in Kilo, in observation, and how can we actually build software together as community. So about 60 community members came together, one day at the Pu'uhonua, one day at the Purple Maya offices, and a demo day at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. We actually built and launched a working piece of technology, a combination between hardware, physical sensors to be able to monitor the health of an ecosystem, and a software dashboard that's able to ingest that data and communicate it back to a steward. And just a few quick screenshots of how this initial pilot works, and we're going to be able to I guess continue to evolve this. This is pretty new stuff on our end, but it is a working functional dashboard here. But where this ties into cooperatives is an opportunity to continue to work with community members, build products, and then if we're able to monetize them and commercialize them, how do we ensure that the community members that build this together are also co-owners as well, and it can help dictate the future, which in many ways is the masses coming together to chart a new future for each other. So even just building specific products right now, Purple Maya, we're experimenting how those could potentially be cooperatives or really build worker ownership into there. And I'm going to end here, with a little early announcement of a partnership that we're doing collectively with Go Farm, which is going to be an 8-week course around a lot of the topics that we've touched on here around food security, around how occupation can lead to vai for a community, our land rights, and then also we'll be in the process of restoring different greenhouses up at Nation of Hawaii, and if we're training farmers and then building additional infrastructure, how can we continue to explore the potential for worker ownership around what that commercialization could be. And so this will be a course that we're going to be publicly announcing in about a week or so, but want to give a little bit of an early heads up here. But I can maybe pause and hand it over to Brandon now.
Mahalo, Keone. Aloha, everyone. My name is Brandon Maka'ava. I am the Vice President of the Nation of Hawaii. And I'm glad to be here talking about co-ops and stuff. And when I first was presented with this opportunity, I was thinking, I don't know much about co-ops. And then I got to think about the work we do at the Nation, and a lot of it is based on ahupua'a. And I believe an ahupua'a is is the Hawaiian version of what a co-op is. You know, it's communally governed, it's communally shared, and most importantly, the kuleana of the ahupua'a is also shared. And so it's a system of reciprocity, and it's something that we are reestablishing in our pu'uhonua. And where our pu'uhonua is situated is a very special place. About 30 years ago, the way we got on our lands was we had to occupy Kaupo Beach Park for over 15 months. Our president, Uncle Bumpy Kanahele, led an occupation of about 300 Hawaiians there who are mostly houseless, and we're tired of getting pushed around by the counties and states and getting arrested as houseless people often do. And so they gathered there at the Kaupo Beach Park. And in those 15 months, Uncle Bumpy taught them about their rights. And one of the most important things that happened during that occupation was on November 23rd, 1993, the United States passed U.S. Public Law 103-150, which is the apology law, which is America's official apology to the Hawaiian people for the theft of their nation, the theft of their lands, 1.8 million acres. And they acknowledge that we have never relinquished our sovereignty over these lands. And so armed with this new law, Uncle Bumpy taught our people about what this law now does, and what it did was give us the opportunity to occupy these lands legally. And so we occupied Kaupo Beach for over 15 months. The state and the counties really couldn't do nothing about it because this is a new federal law. They weren't prepared for people to kind of take this law and kind of basically start the reconciliation process themselves, but that's exactly what we did. And so at the end of 15 months, we came to an agreement with the state to end the occupation at the beach and move our occupation, Mauka, into the lands of Pu'uhonua Waimanalo, which was, when we got there, was an overgrown invasive forest that had been unmanaged for almost a century. And so when we got up there, the first thing we had to do was clear the land, which was filled with eucalyptus, over 150-foot eucalyptus trees. There were thousands of them. And we had to clear roadways. We had to build our platforms to put our tents on, because we were moving directly from an occupation on the beach with our tents and everything that we had down there up to a place where there was no infrastructure there. And so over the last 30 years, our village and our nation has built communally all the infrastructure that exists in our pu'uhonua. So from the houses to the roadway to the broadband network. And so when we look at stuff like co-ops and we look at stuff like communal land tenure, which we had before the Great Mahele, we understand that this is the natural way of doing things here in Hawaii, that our people resonate with a communal type of living, with a shared type of living, which is similar to what I believe co-ops are. And what I heard from everybody here was, like Maria said earlier, it's the ecosystem of the co-op. This is the ahupua'a, right? And what Kelly shared about, all of the the facets of it not just being agricultural, but it can be an economy. It can be, all these different things. And so I believe where we're situated in our nation, in our pu'uhonua, we are ready for that change. It's like a few people mentioned earlier, the permitting process that we have to go through for the state, all of the bureaucratic barriers that also bar our people from reoccupying our lands and reconciliation, bar, things like co-ops to get organically created. Well, in our nation, we welcome co-ops. We welcome this type of opportunities and partnerships. And as shared by Keone, we are partnering with a number of organizations. You know, on our Aloha Aina days, we've been partnering with Sustainable Coastlines to organize that for over 2 years. We've been partnering with organization called Hawaii Food Service Alliance to do food distribution in our pu'uhonua at every makeke. We've been partnering with Purple Maya for the last 3 years, doing education with our hamana. And so this idea of co-op, although it might be new to us and our people now in the English terms, I think is very much a Hawaiian relationship type of thing that we are just accustomed to. And I feel like today, now more than ever, like Rihanna shared earlier, we have the opportunity to really make a change. The system that we currently live in now is such an oligarchy. It's such a fascist system that is very much controlled by the top. I wouldn't even say 1%. It's like the top 0.0001%. You know, and we need to start taking back our power as a people and begin to create the systems that will carry us forward. We believe in our nation, you know, we're not fighting a system anymore. What we're doing is building the replacement system, which we are going to be transferring over to in the future. You know, so there is no fight going on right now. We have to just equip the new system to take on the needs that we are currently forced to use the, you know, what we have right now. But I believe co-ops, I believe partnerships, I believe in the Ahupua'a system is what is gonna develop a bigger, better, a brighter, a more equitable future for not just Hawaii, but the world. But Hawaii can be that example. You know, and I'm so glad that we got the opportunity to be invited to this this call, to be invited to the meeting that is coming up on the Big Island at the end of the month, because I would love to learn more and share more about you know, the potential of how the nation of Hawaii can help, you know, at least on our end in the Hawaiian community, help to spread the idea of co-op and to kind of link between co-ops and Ahupua'a, because I think when our people understand that they're very much similar, I think there's gonna be a big uptick in more co-op organizing around Hawaii. But you know, I think I'll just kind of stop there to allow for time for other people. But just appreciate the time and everybody's work. Mahalo.
Mahalo nui, Brandon. Really appreciate your time. Yeah, so last but not least, welcoming Kyle Jackson from Hawaii Ulu Co-op. Kyle.
How's it going? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
And are you able to see the screen share presentation?
I don't see a slide yet, but it says that you are screen sharing. So
Okay, maybe I need to get out of this view that I'm in. Does that come up now?
not seeing anything. No, just says to double click to enter your full screen mode, but there's no slides or anything. Do you have a couple of monitors, perhaps? Maybe one of them's registering, the other one's not.
No, I just have one monitor. I'm sharing a specific tab, so maybe that's why it's not working. Let me try here.
Sure.
Are you guys able to see this now?
Not seeing anything, but you know, maybe if you wanted to email me what you have really quick, then I can try to share it. And then in the meantime, we can welcome Kelly back in to add a few remarks that she wanted to make.
Sure. Give me 1 sec.
Sure. Kelly, did you want to jump back on?
I mean, I think actually, I think so much has been covered. I mean, it's been it's been so so rich in bringing, you know, I think, Brandon, what you were just talking about, especially with the ahupua'a economic, I put out in quote economic, but it is economic, has some in its original economic meaning, and how much potential there is of bringing that to the forefront of understanding, shaping, and designing cooperatives. I've been really inspired with some of the indigenous cooperatives that have formed in really beautiful, innovative ways over on the continent, especially in Canada, especially in the Inuit region. There's federated cooperatives. Everything is kind of structured, I think, kind of co-opting the current system. And I think that's the important part. And so instead of like housing it within the cooperative structure, you're actually co-opting aspects of it to serve the local interests and needs. So you kind of just can flip it around. But that said, you know, one of the reasons why so many have dissolved and haven't been able to sustain themselves is because it's slow work, it's difficult work. You know, working together, building that trust, making decisions in a way that is more communally orientated isn't easy. It's not how most of us in our current system have been educated. And so doesn't mean it can't happen, but I think, again, you know, the more that we can support that ecosystem together to really be able to support each other, not just, you know, with folks like me or Teresa or, you know, other folks that have supported cooperatives individually, but really having that collective and that communal between. But I also completely agree too. It's really the time is right now. And I think the more also we can wean ourselves off of the federal dollars, the better, for such a variety of reasons. But yeah, so just mahalo again for everyone's input. So hopefully Kyle's will.
Mahalo, Kelly. Yeah, I think in the meantime, while we wait for some of that other stuff to get sorted out, we do have a question from Koyama. Those 300 or so cooperative entities that dissolved, you can identify some. Can you identify some of those individuals who attempted them? Oh, all right. All right. Sorry, Glenn. We're going to jump into Kyle's presentation. He's got it up, but we will answer your question when we get some time. Mahalo. Go ahead, Kyle.
Awesome. Is it showing up for you guys okay now? You guys
It
can
looks
see?
good.
Okay. Sweet. Great. Kyle Jackson. I'm the membership lead for the cooperative, and I've been really stoked to just share a little time, just discussing, you know, how the functions of our co-op and, you know, how we got to the point that we're at today. So the cool thing about our cooperative is that we work with farmers of all sizes. And basically, we work from everybody from backyard farmers to large scale commercial growers. We have farmers that span across 4 islands, and we're currently at about 184 members. The co-op is, as many folks mentioned already, the cornerstone of being a co-op is having members be a farmer-owned business who are actively contributing to the success of the co-op. And for us, that happens in a lot of different ways, but the main way that we identify that as is delivering breadfruit to us. So we were formed in 2016. Small growers on Hawaiʻi. We've currently grown to, as I said, about 184 members across 4 islands, and we're now the foremost breadfruit farmer organization in Hawaii. By working together, and the main mission of the co-op is that we're committed to the revival of ulu to strengthen Hawaii's food security and to the values of Malama Aina, which is taking care of our agricultural lands, our Aina, and our community as a whole by using environmentally responsible production methods to deliver more food to our community. And our vision ultimately producers, consumers, and our community as a whole. Oh,
Sorry, Kyle, we have a lot of connectivity issues. We're not really receiving most of what you're putting out right now. Not sure if you're having connectivity issues. Just wanted to give you a chance to take a look at that. I stopped your video and I thought maybe that might help, but it sounds like we're having a lot of audio problems.
got it. One sec. All right. Is it sounding a little better now for you guys?
Yeah, that's coming in really consistent and clear now. Thank you.
All right. I apologize about that. Should I re-gear a slide back, or did you guys get anything out of what I said so far?
We haven't really gotten much, no. So if you wanted to maybe briefly sum some of that up again and then move forward, that would be great.
Okay, awesome. Apologies about that. Yeah, so I'll just start again with this slide. Again, my name's Kyle Jackson. I'm the membership lead for the cooperative. The co-op was started as a farmer-owned business, as many other folks said. Member ownership and contributions are the biggest cornerstone to an active co-op being successful. And so we're a farmer-owned business that, with our main goal working to revitalize ulu as a viable crop and dietary staple by empowering our farmers as change makers in our local food systems. We started in 2016 with 9 small farmers on Hawaii Island, and we've grown to over 180 members, currently at 184 active members on Hawaii Island, Maui, Oahu, and Kauai. And we're now the largest breadfruit farmer organization in Hawaii. The main goal of the co-op is that we're committed to revitalizing ulu to strengthen Hawaii's food security and to add to the value of to the values of Malama Aina, which is, taking care of our lands and our community as a whole and furthering our success locally by investing in our land systems and our farmers that are here. And our vision as a thriving cooperative is that we want to sustain and uplift producers, consumers, and our community as a whole. Our slogan is farmer owned, Aina grown, from our trees to your table. And I'll just go over a little bit about some of our demographics that we've gotten to, being a co-op that's coming up on 9 years of age. So over the past few years, we've intaken almost 1 million pounds of ulu. So we've taken in 872,000 pounds of ulu throughout our facilities. We've taken in over 1.5 million total pounds of co-crops for a total of 2.4 million pounds of all crops received and processed. And our cooperative has been steadily growing, as you guys can see in the bottom left. That's our graph of cumulative membership. And we've been, consistently scaling our membership and expanding to other islands from Hawaii Island since 2016. And we have farmers in various regions throughout Hawaii Island, as well as on our neighbor islands. We've got about 7,004 trees throughout co-op membership, and that number is probably a little shy just because folks don't always update us immediately when they plant trees. Some of our foundational tenets is that our mission is to revitalize ulu as a viable staple crop by empowering our farmers. Our vision is establishing a thriving cooperative that sustains and uplifts our producers, consumers, and community. And our purpose overall is to restore Hawaii's food sovereignty. And some of our values below reflect that also. And I'll skip ahead to just a little bit of the discussion of food sovereignty here. I'm sure most people on this call are very aware of the challenges that we have in local food production versus the amount of food that we import. So recent surveys have shown that Hawaii imports an estimated 90% of its food and almost 100% of our staple crops. The closest port is over 2,000 miles away. And at any given time, we have, up to a week of supply of food available. But beyond that, we would have to rely on local means, which shows our reliance upon external food sources. And these ratios just show that imports are really vulnerable to disruption from natural disasters and other global conflicts like we saw with COVID. And as a productive, carbohydrate-rich, and incredibly versatile crop, ulu could replace a lot of our imported starches like rice, wheat, and potatoes. This is just a little bit of a summary of our harvest data since we began the co-op. One of the biggest challenges.
All right, Kyle. Hey, we're not seeing your slides advance at all. So if you could still continue the presentation, just considering that we don't have the visual aids, that'd be great.
Okay. Got it. Apologies. I'm not sure what's going on with my data connection today. Yeah, so overall, the slide that's up right now shows some of our production volumes over the past 8 years. And one of the biggest challenges that we've had in the co-op is scaling our demand and our supply at the same time, which is a really challenging balance to achieve. Certain cultural crops such as ulu and kalo might be well known or might be well heard of, but especially at the time that the co-op started, there wasn't a really high demand on a commercial level for these crops. And so part of our mission is not only scaling the supply of what is available as far as local food options, but also increasing the cultural awareness and consumer demand for these crops. And that's why it's really important that we work with the school systems, we work with a bunch of different community partners to make sure that our food makes it onto a variety of different local tables. Talking a little bit about our structure and why we encourage members to join the cooperative is that we guarantee market access. So we basically guarantee a market for our farmers breadfruit year round, meaning if you're a co-op member, then you can deliver breadfruit to our facilities anytime all year and we will purchase it. And that's really the number one benefit and claim to fame that we offer for our producers. In addition to that, we offer a stable price. So we're currently paying $1.30 a pound for A grade fruit and 90 cents a pound for B grade fruit. And that's consistent throughout the year. And we try and raise prices to keep up with inflation and other, market challenges. Additionally to the market access and the consistent reliability, we offer technical assistance and customized guiding. So we produce a variety of resources, blogs, guides, and connection and collaboration with other folks such as UH Hawaii and other organizations to work on providing the most up-to-date production resources that farmers could use to be successful. In addition to the market access, we have a fully vertically integrated value chain support. So we take care of everything from when you deliver it to our facilities to processing it, working on sales and getting it out into the community. An additional benefit that farmers find from joining cooperatives in general, but something that our members really love to tell us that they find as a benefit is the community and the in-person opportunities that we offer. So that could be anything from in-person farm consultations to workshops or regional member meetings, which we try to have once a year in addition to our annual meeting. And so in addition to the co-op being a successful business, and something that folks can rely on for a market and for technical support, one of the biggest benefits that our producers mention is actually being able to connect with other farmers, connect with other folks even in different sectors in the agriculture community that we bring together. Oops. So the structure, and I'll try to keep it short here. I know we've had some issues, so I just want to talk about some of the more key points of our cooperative. Is we are a member owner structure, so the requirements of co-op members to join the cooperative is that they have at least one breadfruit tree planted or plans to plant within 1 year. And then once you meet that requirement, you can submit an application for our board to vote on. So we have two classes. One is associate member and the other is producer member. Associate members are those with trees that are younger than fruit-bearing age, and they get onboarded just paying the annual dues, whereas producer members are actively producing folks with bearing trees, and they get onboarded as active members who have a vote in the cooperative and are able to purchase a share of common stock. And the requirements for membership is, other than engaging, with our membership department and our board through our annual meeting every year, is to deliver at least 25 pounds of breadfruit a year once you become a producer member. And so, as you can see, the requirements and the investment is pretty low for the benefits that you get. Only having to pay $25 a year to keep your dues current, and delivering just at least one small harvest a year will keep you an active member. As we mentioned above, some of the benefits are the year-round and consistent market for breadfruit. We also purchase co-crops such as kalo, sweet potato, and squash, as well as occasional other fresh fruit and vegetable products as we make connections with folks that need them. Another big benefit that folks find with the cooperative structure is the in-person networking, whether that's educational workshops, member meetings, on-farm consultations, or like Brandon mentioned, we've been having a lot of in-person agroforestry work days that have brought people together to help Malama Aina together and learn about an educational topic. And then, of course, the ability to sell co-crops during the off-season, as well as some of our other technical support like soil and tissue sampling. Another big focus of the co-op right now, both through our membership and just, with the community at large and interested farmers who are looking to transition out of other traditional commercial operations such as avocado or coffee, is to promote ulu agroforestry. And that's, as many of these practices is returning to the roots of what was done previously to be successful here with farming in Hawaii. And so promoting folks to grow diverse crops, especially with growing crops that will come to term before ulu trees are mature. So growing row crops such as kalo or sweet potato or squash, and really providing a bridge for members and other members of the public, other farmers who want to be educated in learning new agroforestry techniques. And I'm not sure if any of my slides started populating, but just a little bit more about why you might want to join the co-op. And, if you guys have any questions, feel free to pop them in the Q&A.
Mahalo, Kyle. Yeah, we didn't get any of your slides coming up, but we have the link to check out Hawaii Ulu Co-op in the chat, and folks can check that out and follow along and find ways that they can learn more and become active. We have about a minute left, so I just wanted to take this time to mahalo everybody. I know this was a long one for us today and a lot of things coming together. So thank you everyone for your patience and for adapting in some of our technical challenges. Just couldn't be more appreciative to hit this milestone, being our 12th event in this series, and just really appreciated everyone for your support and for attending and taking the time to share all these things. Thank you all so much.
Mahalo.
Mahalo for having us.
Mahalo.
Mahalo, Ioane.
Much.
Aloha.